which means that the site isn't really very usable. Down here, we have the potential to create some fairly good level areas. So one of the things we'd like to do is to actually see if we could rethink the circulation and to create leveler areas where you could actually use it. And so that's the big challenge here. I have the next one. So just to go through some, so for example, at Speedwell, the elevation is 360 feet, and down at Prospect. Now Prospect is 336. I'll get it right. But there's 24 feet of grade change from the top to the bottom, which is like a two-story building. It's about 270 feet long. Down at the bottom, it's 175 feet wide, which is nice. But there's some areas, like right here, it narrows down to 35 feet wide. You know, 3 car lengths. So it's tight. Also, there's a connection up here to Speedwell, which is seen as a temporary connection. It's the existing gap in the building, so it provides a connection on day one. But longer term, there is an easement through here, and it's expected that with redevelopment, this in the future would likely become the main entrance. So we've been asked to develop a scheme that can work with entrances at either of those 2 points, probably a short-term entrance and then a longer-term entrance. Next. You can ask questions anytime if you have a burning question. So the concept that I want to present is called garden rooms, really making a series of usable rooms. Next.
I'm sorry, I have
Yes.
a question. Going backwards,
Yes.
to the last slide.
Yes.
We live on Clinton Place, so our parking spaces are directly against the park. How would we be able to access?
Right
Yeah,
there.
we're right down
What a
there.
lovely condo.
We're basically Clinton
Yeah.
and Prospect.
So there's an existing driveway here that comes in.
Yeah.
That driveway would be maintained,
Okay.
and then there would be access, the driveway to here, and there'd be access along here
Okay.
to the existing townhouse.
Yeah, the one picture had it covering the driveway, so this wanted to make sure.
Right, no. We're very aware of the driveway, and we're very aware of the access circumstance. So this shows the concept, which I'll go through in more detail, with really a series of pocket parks. A pocket park up at Speedwell, another pocket park, a third one, a fourth one, and then really a big lawn. We think that probably having a big lawn is something that people would really like. And I'll go through some more detail. So this is these are the existing townhouses along the Clinton, right?
Yeah.
And then the driveway goes along the backside here.
Thank you.
Next. So in looking at how we could start to create leveler areas, what we're going to need to do is we're actually going to need to put in some grade changes or some retaining walls to create a series of rooms that step down this slope. So I don't think it's going to be quite as architectural as this, but this gives you the concept of actually having a series of rooms that step down this slope. It might look something like that, with basically a series of usable platforms with planting between. I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as this, but the rooms, because they do set up high, will have good views. Yeah.
What do you envision those rooms being used for,
Well, that's
the platforms?
I'll pitch a few ideas tonight, but I think one of the things that we really want to hear tonight is really some sort of uses you'd like to see.
Okay.
I think what we've been told going into it is that small social uses, that active, people congregating is good. We've been looking at things like maybe picnic tables. Today we got a suggestion of bocce, which I think could fit on this site. We've been also talking about how art might be incorporated at the entrances. So that's really the programming is what we want to talk about tonight. So.
And are you looking for those suggestions now, or would you like us to wait?
We can do it anywhere along the line. If you have a burning suggestion, I'll take it now, or we can wait. I think later on we've got drawings out so we can start to make lists of things. But,
Yeah, so we want to make sure we remember all the ideas and get them all written down, and, you know, we can keep track of them. So when the presentation is finished, we'll have you all go to the back of the room, and you can put sticky notes up or write it down on a sheet of paper. Yeah, so we want to get everything that you have said.
And I'll try to keep this short so we can get to that. So there's an idea that we might use landscape to help reinforce these rooms so they actually feel like garden rooms in some cases and not all hard plazas. And we think that, you know, this is the Highline in New York, but even small spaces like this can actually accommodate a lot of use and actually be quite beneficial to urban space. And then we also want to build in, I can just go back, the idea of building in some useful infrastructure for sitting and hanging out is good. Next. I don't think we're going to do anything this formal, but I think that some hedging might be very useful. Hedging and lawn and ground covers could be quite nice here. And there could be some very nicely composed spaces that have trees and are shady and comfortable. And we also might incorporate something like a kind of a really big formal herbaceous border, like an old-fashioned border garden. Yes.
Is the idea that the whole place will be dog-friendly, or is there going to be certain areas that will?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the city policy is in Morristown for dog friendly. I live in New York City where the dogs are always put in dog runs.
Well, that's what I was wondering if that
And
was.
certainly, it could go either way depending on town policy, I guess, what folks think.
And that's something you can give us feedback on, if you want a certain area to be a dog park, or if you don't want dogs in the park, like, these are definitely suggestions that you can share with us.
I mean, in some ways, I assume you have a litter law in Morristown, like everywhere else. So in some ways, you know, if you're walking through the park, it's like walking along the sidewalk. And whether we have off-leash areas that are designated, I think that's something we can talk about. Next. And then we would like to have, you know, some ornamental quality of trees. Some hedging, because we have quite a bit of grade change, and I think it'd be good to have some privacy for the park, but also for the folks who live next to the park, or for the commercial businesses next to the park, so that there's some healthy separation between the uses. And I think it could actually be kind of garden-like in some ways, so it actually feels like a neighborhood, more so than maybe a public place. We've been looking at sort of very simple materials like bluestone and brick and gravel, kind of traditional materials. And a mix of furnishings, anything like traditional bench to contemporary updated conventional traditional bench. So something more contemporary. We have an idea at the entrance that there might be these kind of interesting zigzag kind of benches, so that you get a kind of nook where people can sit in the corners and talk to each other. It's a little more social. Or we might be able to do loose furnishing like the chaise lounges, so you can actually lay down in the park, which I think is kind of a nice idea. To actually things that are actually portable. We could very easily have loose chairs and tables that people can move around. So in terms of programming, we've not really gone through a lot of detail, but some of the initial thoughts were that we very easily could think about like exercise equipment, which is popular in a lot of urban parks now. We could look at game tables. I've been in a lot of parks now that have movable ping pong tables that people like to use, and the park is protected enough that the ball's not going to roll into the street, it's not going to be unsafe. A lot of times there are things like outdoor chess that people play that have movable pieces. This is a park I did in California where we built in a gas fireplace for the fall, which is actually quite nice. And then this is Bryant Park, which has a great deal of big social spaces, but really a great big lawn. A big lawn is a great thing because people can use it for many different kinds of things. So we started by looking at the grading, because the grading is so complicated here. It's grading in downhill in this direction, but it's also grading in this direction. So it's very complicated grading. It's very difficult to work with. And we've worked with sort of very standard engineering grades of like a 3-to-1 slope for the steep ones. So this is the kind of grade that the civil engineers will tell me that I should use as my steeper slope. So we really try to pay attention to what the civil engineers ultimately are going to tell us we can do. But it does suggest and show that you can have a continuous ADA path from Speedwell all the way down to Prospect with a combination of sloping paths and ramps and graded spaces. So it is possible to do this and to create a set of rooms. Next, please. So this just shows sort of the basic diagram of what would be softscape and what would be potentially hardscape. These areas wouldn't necessarily have to be all paved. They could be paved or a combination of paved and hard. We will need some pathways through them. And then a large lawn at the bottom.
Is there parking for this part nearby?
There's some parking in this, along this street, and I think there's some parking.
Also inside the building that's being built.
There's an entire parking garage, I mean, that's in.
Gonna be
Public parking?
No, that's for the
No, it's
parking.
private
No, part of it will be public.
There's some
60 spaces
components,
of
right?
public parking.
There's 60 spaces of public parking that's planned for that building as well.
60.
That the parking authority will be responsible.
So the parking garage is right, entrance is right there. I think we might do another one on the other side, so. Okay. And then this shows what it would be with full planting out. I think the key planting ideas are to work with the development and see if we can do a coordinated tree plant between the development and the park so the park feels bigger. If we can get the trees to jump across the street, it's going to just feel like a bigger space than it actually is. And also to get enough shade so there's comfortable areas. And then we're looking at some very long hedgerows along the back, a kind of broken line of hedgerows. So there's little bits of use there, but basically there's privacy set up to the neighbors, and then those actually continue up here. And this shows the phase 2 entry that would also be Speedwell with future redevelopment.
Who's gonna care for the gardens and the trees and the grass? Who cares for that?
Shelley, can you?
Good old town of Morristown.
Oh, okay.
There is, for the first few years, there's a shared responsibility with the developer,
Okay.
but ultimately the town will take responsibility for it.
And I think we can put together plant palettes that are perennial and maintainable. Nothing is no maintenance, and everything does need some maintenance to look good and work well. But I think we can be careful about the maintenance.
Is there gonna be lighting in there?
Yeah, so there's street lighting along here. We may have some traditional pole lighting, but we're trying to see.
Attention. Can I get a custodian to 282A to open the door, please? Custodian to 282A. Thank you.
But I'd like to see if we can avoid kind of traditional park lighting. And so I think we'll start looking at, are there ways that we could build in some integrated lighting into maybe some of the walls, maybe the handrails and things like that. It's very easy nowadays with LED technology to build lighting into handrails. It throws the lighting on the path where you're walking. It's sort of the right place. But we're also talking about something that's a little more ceremonial. There's an idea about doing a kind of permanent installation of kind of string lights that would be overhead. So we have a few poles and we have cables, and it's a kind of festival light. But but actually done on a kind of permanent level, yes.
Enough sun in there for solar powered lights?
Maybe, I don't know, I have to think about that. It depends on how many trees we plant.
Yeah, yeah.
But it might be possible. Might be possible. It might be something that we talk to the developer about, maybe there's solar panels on the adjoining development or something. It's a good idea.
And how about an irrigation system then?
It will be all automatically irrigated.
Oh,
That's, I think, for an urban park, you need that. The lawn will need that. Also, if you go out there today, the whole site is completely ripped apart. So all of the, we'll put back parent subsoils, but we'll probably need to actually engineer most of the topsoils using some parent material, but we'll be paying careful attention to making sure that we have good, well-drained soils, the soils that are designed to promote good, healthy plant growth.
fantastic.
And the next one. And then we've also been asked to think about how we could incorporate art opportunities into the park. And I think right now, we don't have any specific ideas, but we're sort of, our thinking is it'd be great to do something down here at Prospect, it'd be great to do something up here at Speedwell to use art to actually help mark the entrances and try to make visibility and help in drawing people into the park. But again, that's an open discussion in terms of how we do that. It's something we'd like to do, and we need to figure out what it is, how it happens, where it goes, and what's the program. And there is some art budget as part of the project. There's some
50,000 from the developer.
50,000 from the developer.
And when's the time frame for this? When are you going to start construction, finish?
Well, so we're ready to concept, and I think that once we get a good feeling that everybody's on board with the plans and we get approval from the city, then we'll do construction documents like as quickly as we can. The development is already under construction, and with roads and things going on, it would really be good for us to be in sync with their construction schedule. So the goal is to try to catch up to their construction schedule. I don't know what those dates are specifically. Do you have a sense of?
I think they're supposed to be occupied in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So that seems like a reasonable schedule.
Okay.
So then we've done a couple views, which we also have on the boards over here. This shows the big lawn Prospect, pathway running through, and then the series of garden rooms, and then the connection up to Speedwell. And you also see sort of the suggestion of the evergreen hedges. You can see the idea of the herbaceous border garden wrapping around. In the next one. And this shows it without the trees, so you can see a little clearer what we're proposing. One idea that we're thinking about, and you can tell us if it's a good idea or not, I think it might be interesting, but because spaces are tight, we want to get as much space as possible. One of the ideas that I've been thinking about is there a way to actually make very thin retaining walls? If we do a masonry wall, stone or something, we're probably going to have walls that are, 9 foot or a foot thick, which, it's not a lot, but it takes a foot off of each side of the park. So when I did that fireplace in California, we constructed it out of 1-inch thick Corten steel plates, which is actually fairly easy to do because you just cast them directly into a concrete footing. And they're very, very thin. So that's one idea. Not everybody likes Corten steel because it's rusty. I actually think that it provides a kind of warmth and a patina, which is nice. But that's an idea we can discuss to see if we like that or not. But I think on the ground plane, we'd like to stick with brick and bluestone and gravel. And then this shows the view from the bottom, the herbaceous border, shade trees, the lawn, and then paths that move out through these series of gardens.
Could the lawn be like thyme, you know, an herb that's really soft and smells good, that doesn't suck up so much water and is more sustainable than grass?
It's possible. I've used buffalo grass in some lawns, and it's very drought tolerant and can be mown. The thyme is nice and oftentimes gets used in the sort of the joints between paving stones, because when you step on it, it smells good. I'm not sure it would take heavy use. So
Okay.
I think ultimately we want a lawn that's going to be durable enough that if you wanted to do something like this, or if the
Right.
kids want to throw the ball around, or you know, I sort of imagine if we do a lot of people are going to really want to use it.
All right, great.
But there are different kinds of grasses, and there are some that are less water consumptive than others.
Thank you.
And then this is really an idea of what we think it could look like at night, and how we think it could be programmed, so that it's active and lively. I think there'll be enough people living around that it would be good to actually have some active programming, active uses. Is that the end? That's the end. So I can walk you around these boards, and I can take some more questions, and then I think we'll break and go into participation.
Just one thing to let you know, this is the first of 2 meetings. The second meeting will be December 13th at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. It'll be the exact same thing to get more information, so if you come up with an idea between now and then, come on back and share it with us. But we're going to go through the boards real quick so you know what you're looking at, and then please, grab more refreshments and use the back of the room. Oh,
Yes.
Oh, I had a comment and a question. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a very difficult site. I love the idea of Hortense Steel, because I think our side of town is a little bit more gritty and we don't need to be so. I have a huge concern about maintenance, and I'm sure everybody in this room does. Doesn't mean I want you to design, another park with, plants that don't need any maintenance, but I think it's something that, as a town, we really have to consider some sort of maintenance bond or something, because it's just a huge problem. We just don't have the crews, the town's just not set up to take care of something like that. So
That's absolutely something, that was one of the first questions I think I asked when we first initiated this process, and something we'll have to take into consideration as we sort of look at finalizing development. I think if we go a direction that brings in the flowers and the plants and the shrubs and whatever, we may need to consider either adding to our permit staff, or doing some kind of outside contract or something to ensure that our investment looks good for the long term. But that's absolutely something that I'm considering.
Because otherwise.
No, the last thing you want is a park that looks terrible.
Yes, agreed.
Who will pay for all this?
Can you talk about that?
You're waiting for that one.
Okay, so the primary funding for this is from an escrow from the developer. So as part of the development process, there's monies already put aside. So it's shared actually 50-50 between the developer and the town. The town's portions came from the proceeds of the sale of the land to the developer, and the developer added the other half. So there's about $1 million or so that's already set aside for the construction of this park. If we do something really ambitious and it goes beyond that, then we'll have to discuss some additional funding. But there's already money set aside from the development process.
Julian, does this mean that the developer doesn't have to support the COA obligation?
No, absolutely not. This development already incorporates affordable housing. In each one of these buildings has affordable units incorporated. This is completely irrelevant to the COA issue.
Question, is the park gonna have a closing and opening time? Like I know some parks in Morristown, you got to leave at night, and then, but at the Green, you can go throughout the day and night. So is there gonna be a set time where you have to get out?
I think it would probably depend on the programming. We do generally have an ordinance with all of our parks which are dawn to dusk. Yes, that's right. You know, if this park is designed very differently and it's designed for nighttime activity, we may have to look at modifying that policy. But that would have to be something decided at the time with our governing bodies.
Who would be in charge of the programming, like the town?
Yes, this is a public meeting.
So I'll just walk you through these and then we'll break up the back. So these are sort of the images in a bird's eye view. Over here are the grading and some drawings that give dimensions. That if you have some technical interest, they're here. This is a blow-up of the garden rooms and some basic dimensions to give you a sense of the scale of them. And then these show the lighting and an idea of different materials. And then this is the illustrated plan with the tree canopies showing phase 1 connection Speedwell and showing the future phase 2 connection Speedwell. And there's poster pads, so if you have something, put the poster pad on here, make a note. You can draw right in the drawings if you want to try and freeze. Yes?
You said there's about $1 million in the budget. What is your concept gonna cost roughly, yes?
I don't know. We haven't priced it yet. I think once I never guess. I don't know.
I'm sorry, did you say you have to wait for the apartments to be finished before you bid?
I think the idea is that we want to be on a similar construction schedule as the building construction, because you don't want to delay, you don't want to make the construction go on forever. So.
Get a lot of like excavation.
Yeah, and there's related things when they're building this road, and basically you're putting soil in place. And you might as well be putting in soil in place in the park the same time you're doing the grading for the road. So it's much more efficient to do it all at once.
How many phases are there? Phase 2 is now. Are there more phases? Yeah.
There's one more phase. And I may have to pump this to the planners, but phase 3 was actually done first. That was the CVS side. So that's phase 3. Madera 44 is phase 1. This is phase 2. Phase 4, if you will, is the rest of Speedwell. So,
Is there ever like a phase
this
7?
commercial property is the
That'd be nice.
phase
Is there ever like a phase 7 that wants to place condos to go away? Because that would be really nice. We'll sell in a heartbeat.
We'll certainly notify our planners to evaluate that.
What's going to happen in phase 4 with those? Isn't that commercial property?
It's currently commercial.
Phase 4, you know, it's in the redevelopment plan as phase 4. Nothing has been decided on, nothing has been planned. It's not in any way, you know, there's no developer designated or anything. So it's supposed to be redeveloped. There is interest. There are, you know, individuals that want to do something, but nothing has been planned out yet.
So the land has nothing been purchased.
The current owner is interested in redeveloping, and we've been meeting with them, but there has not been anything finalized.
And are they gonna work on the timing of the lights? When you go up to early and Speedwell's coming down, you're trying to turn to go back around we live in Madera 44, it is impossible to get around there.
There's a couple things that are gonna happen with that. First, there's an entire redesign of that intersection that is already on the drawing board. We're also embarking on a mobility study that will incorporate not only that sort of corridor, but from the green through sort of all the 4 major corridors that go off the green that all sort of affect one another. So that's coming too.
Okay. Well, we'll all still be here. I want to give you all a chance to start, you know, giving your feedback. So if you have any individual questions for anyone, please.